Okay, now.
There we go. Yep, thank you so much, Lydia. Welcome everyone to the iFedferation at the 2023 ASIS annual meeting session. We are really grateful that you could join us today. We have, let me introduce myself. Those of you who don't know me, my name is Ababa Risa. I have the pleasure of serving as the president of ASIST, a fine association with members from over 75 countries, a truly global association. So those of you who don't know about the iFedferation, it is a partnership between three organizations, ASIST, ALIS, and the iSchools organization. I would like to thank the leaders of the two sister organizations, especially, I don't know if Sanda is here, Sanda Erdeles from the iSchools, and Rong Tang and Lucy Santos Green from ALIS. As you know, events like this needs a lot of effort and time, and I really want to thank Lydia Middleton, our wonderful ASIST executive director, and then her excellent staff, ASIST staff. And we have really truly accomplished scholars who are going to participate in the debate. Chirag Shah, who is going to moderate the debate, and we have Susie Allard, Lynn Conway, Michael Seidel, Ken Flashman, Sarah Brad, and Li Hongzhu. So today's session is unique, to say the least. We have not done something like this, but what we want you to do is really have fun, because the debaters are here to have fun, and I hope along the way we will learn something. So Chirag, it is your show, so back to you.
Thank you, Abebe, and once again, welcome everyone. So as Abebe said, this is an experiment. We originally were thinking of doing a panel, but said, well, there's just like so many panels and there's just so many of that, particular format. But let's put us in an uncomfortable spot. So rather than just getting together and talking, let's actually debate. And so that's what we have structured. So here's how it's going to go. So first off, I want to make sure that everybody has the right view of this debate. Lydia has organized us in neat rows for the pros and cons. And so you want to make sure that in your Zoom, you have the speaker view and not gallery view. So I think speaker view should set you up, and you should be able to see 3 on pro, 3 on con, and then Abebe and myself at the bottom. So that's the ideal view. If you can set that, that would be great. Now, the statement and the way it works here, and if you haven't witnessed something like this or participated, let me just walk through that, the way we're going to run it. So we have a statement which is intentionally controversial, and the statement is information professions cannot solve the problems created by AI. I'm sure Lydia can address the chat comments, so I'm going to just focus on this. So the statement is information professions cannot solve the problems created by AI. And what it essentially means that we're looking at AI as a disruptive force, as thing that would disrupt things in a bad way. That's actually going to, in the extreme view, is destroy our information professions, but at least, a more realistic view, it will create problems that are beyond the scope for us, that we are not going to be able to do anything about. So the pro team here that you see will be arguing for that. So they agree that this is what's going to happen. The con team is going to do opposite of that. So they're taking the side of, no, information professions can solve this AI problems, right? So just as we go through, I mean, it may seem like a double negative, but just hopefully, it's clear. Now, something to keep in mind, that what you will see today are not really the representation of who each of these individuals are. So they're here to play a part. They are here to take their side and fight for their side, and hopefully take down the other side. but this is not their personal view. So they're given a task. It's sort of like we have put together this play with a bit of improvisation, and everybody's playing their part. And if they do their part, they will hold their ground and not give in to others' arguments or others' views. But for the audience, it's important to keep in mind that there's a reason they are acting this way. And we want you to get along with this format, right? So we are intentionally dividing up people. We are intentionally kind of creating this contentious, environment. What we would encourage audience to do is watch out for some pitfalls. Watch out for some interesting point that's like, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense, and call it out in the chat, right? So you're not going to be able to speak, but you can put your comments or questions in the chat, and we'll be picking those up as appropriate later. We will start by giving each team time for doing opening statement. So we'll go with the pro team. They will have 3 minutes for their opening statement. Then we'll go to the con team, and then back to pro team and con team, and so on. So we'll do this 3 times. So that will cover their opening statements. After that, I'll be calling out and probing them with a specific point or question for which they would have 60 seconds to respond. Then we go to the other side. They will have 60 seconds to respond. And then optionally, we'll have 30-second rebuttal or follow-up from each team. So that will cover 1 point. And then we move to the next point. Okay. And, we'll keep doing it until, time runs out, or we get tired, or, we get shut down by Lydia or Abebe. But we want to encourage audience to be vigilant, to be kind of paying attention to what's going on and calling it out, because we'll count on. So this is how we're going to take your questions. So again, this is not a typical panel. We just, have somebody raise their hand and ask a question, but you can put things in the chat. You can also upvote something. So if you see a question or comment that somebody else has put that you like, you can, in most cases, I think you should be able to just hover your mouse over that comment or question, and it will pull up, it would bring up this reaction icon where you have the upvote or thumbs up reaction that you can put. So that would also inform me to like which one is getting more traction that we can use. Yeah. Okay, so with that setup, we're going to get started. The session is 90 minutes. So it's a long session, but hopefully time will fly by. We'll see how it goes. Again, this is experimental. Let's jump to it and see how it goes. So we're going to start by first allowing each side to provide their opening statement. I would ask each side to be mindful of the time. So if you can set that timer on your side for 3 minutes as you start speaking, that would be great. So I don't have to interrupt, but trust me, I'm not going to shy away from calling you out, interrupting, and maybe, shutting you off. So let's begin. Pro side, it's your turn to start with your opening statement, number 1.
And I think Susie is ready to do it.
I am. So we espouse that the information professions cannot solve the problems created by AI. We begin by defining these key concepts in the statement. We define AI as using computers and machines to approximate problem-solving and decision-making capabilities of the human mind in a wide range of environments and situations. We define problems as a situation that's unwelcome or harmful, and to be overcome, there must be solutions. And we say that solutions are the actions or process to overcome the problem. We hold that information professionals, that if we are saying that an information professional can solve a problem, it means that the information professions are the lead in defining and implementing a solution. So they have to be more than a minor contributor. So we're saying that the information professions are no more than a minor contributor and therefore cannot solve the problems created by AI. AI problems are inherently difficult to solve because they're based on human issues. Their thoughts are complex and opaque. The complexity comes from machines and computers acting as a surrogate for the human creator, and also come from the fact that there's a huge number of human-based problems in which AI is deployed. So there's not just one set of circumstances to solve for. AI problems are opaque because the human creator doesn't include rationale for the AI design. And AI operates in a system that extends beyond the machine and its specific task. So some examples of that AI problems that are not solvable by information professionals are training AI on large data sets takes a lot of energy. Information professionals don't set policy for power usage and environmental protection. Debugging of any kind of AI system, it requires AI, so, where we're talking about things where AI does daydreaming or there's plagiarism. That's far beyond what we can solve all those problems. It's a programmer and developers beyond the information professions. Human misuse of AI in a wide range of situations, fraud, malfeasance, all kinds of things. Think about the fact car companies are not responsible for educating bad drivers. Information professionals cannot be responsible for solving the human behavior problem. And disinformation, which is a major problem with AI, which we're defining as intentional change of information. We are not criminal psychologists or agents identifying and corralling bad actions. So when an AI pro could identify the risk and maybe mitigate it by removing disinformation, the only way to solve it is to remove the actor, and that's beyond what an information professional can do. In closing, we argue that AI is created by humans and trained by human-made algorithms. Therefore, the problem it creates are at the foundation human, and human problems cannot be fixed by information professionals.
Fantastic. Thank you, Susie, for that opening statement. Con, it's your time.
Thank you. What a worthy opponent. That was an excellent opening. All right. Well, ASIS members, esteemed judges, and fellow debaters, we stand before you today on the con side to affirm this proposition that information professionals are not only well equipped, but against Susie's very brash statement, to address the problems of AI, but will lead society on the challenges of AI. 25 years ago, we were all wondering, is the internet going to happen or not? And now it's everywhere. And in an era where AI is rapidly transforming our world, who better than to tackle the problems of AI than the professionals who have been in the front seat of the history of computing and who understand both sides of AI-human interaction. So in this debate, we show how solving problems that AI creates is a natural evolution of the information field. From punch cards, who remembers those, and RDF to misinformation and TikTok, we show that although we've increasingly employed automation, it hasn't led to unemployment or reduced demand for information professionals. Indeed, it is hard to come up with an institution that's more trusted than libraries, for example. It is hard to come up with an institution in society that has more equity-oriented, access-oriented core values that are needed to address the problems of artificial intelligence. Impossible, you say. Why, it is not the role of information professionals to dictate the next steps of the AI revolution. Ah, well, there you'd be wrong. Information professionals have a secret weapon. What is that? Oh, have you heard of the phrase standing on the shoulders of giants? Anyone out there? Yeah. Well, we not only stand on the shoulders of giants, but we also stand shoulder to shoulder with giants to address the most daunting questions of AI. We can ask, well, what would James Garfield do? What would Derek J. DeSola Price do? What would Marcia Bates do? And then we can look at our colleagues at our shoulder and at the ASIS conference and say, what would Carla Hayden do, the Librarian of Congress? What would ASIS President Abeba Rarisa do? These giants in the information profession play a pivotal role in disseminating knowledge and educating the public about AI's capabilities, driven by an ethos of service, access, equity. Information professionals are well prepared to lead society and to tackle those problems of AI by ensuring informed AI development and deployment through collaboration. We look forward to convincing you of that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Sarah, speaking for the con side. Pro side, I don't know if Sarah convinced you or not. If not, this is your time again for the second part of your opening statement.
Well, I guess I will go ahead. We didn't actually decide who was going to go next, but I can always talk. And I'm going to set my timer so that it will actually not go on for 2 hours. You can try and set it. The real issue here, Sarah talked about standing on the shoulders of giants. Well, that's all very fine, but giants aren't very good at hearing, especially when they're that far up. We don't have people in the information profession who actually mostly have the technical skills to make changes in what these AI systems are doing. I'm an old man. You can see my gray hair. I remember when COBOL was the great new system that would free everyone from having to become a programmer. It didn't work. I spent many years debugging COBOL code that had gone through compiler. That's a smart system. It figured out what the person was writing and what it should be in machine language, and it was often wrong. I'm a programmer. Information professionals here, our librarians, they're not programmers. They can't do that. I've just hit a minute. Is that my time limit?
No,
Good. I'll stop.
minutes.
Oh, I have
3
2 minutes. Okay, then I'll go on. One of the things that would make it possible for us to change the situation with AI is if we had the ability to go into these data sets that they're working with and say, okay, this data set isn't acceptable. This data set is going to throw problems. We don't have access to that. We might like to have access. We could ask for access, but we don't have it. It's not realistic to think that the AI developers are going to come and say, librarian, wouldn't you just help us to make this data set a little bit better? Not very likely. And if we're really trying to solve problems, what we've got to do is educate people. We've got to reach out to people to understand what is going wrong with these systems. And we can certainly do that, but we can't do it on a commercial scale. We're not set up to do that sort of thing on a commercial scale. We can argue, we can hope, we can push things in a particular direction, but taking that data set, we've seen this happen before. Think of the statistical systems, which are really wonderful, intelligent systems that.
Okay, I'm gonna jump in as a librarian.
Hang on a second. Okay, so Khan side, it's your
okay.
turn. But Michael, okay.
I wasn't out of time, but that's all right.
Oh, oh.
According to mine, I still had another 30 seconds, but go ahead.
All right, so Michael's argument, go coding or go home. We can fix this thing. Con side, can Lynn?
Yes.
Who's going?
Uh,
Okay, Lynn can go. Okay, great.
as a librarian, I disagree with you, Michael. And I have worked at OCLC for more than 20 years with computer scientists and librarians. And what I have learned is that the computer scientists can do that background like the mechanics, but those of us who are librarians can really bring to the forefront the user side of things. We have been using machine learning for years for retrieval, for indexing, and I have done usability studies. And when we have the computer scientists in the room as the mechanics, they think it's all great and going to work until we get it out there. And so with AI, I think that the librarians and anyone in the information profession that thinks of the human side is able to be a part of this and can help solve the problem. One of the things is information and digital literacy. Who better than someone in the library and information science profession to step in and to address that? I remember when chat reference came out. Oh no, it was the browsers and Google, and we heard reference is dead. Reference is dead. Marie Radford and I did studies on that. Reference was not dead. It still isn't dead. And so you need, yes, you can find information and get information through these systems, but you need a human to help wade through these and often explain, instruct, teach. I think information literacy, digital literacy, that is where we as a profession can make the difference. I'll stop.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you, Lynn. We move to the last part for the pro side, and then we'll come back to con. So, Leon, you're...
I'd like to answer for the pros. Oh, are you ready, Leon? I had something. Go ahead.
We have to go
please
through the
go ahead.
opening statements first. We'll have a chance to do the rebuttals and follow on. Yep.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Well,
Leon.
oh, thank you. Well, some say we have a lot of things to do. I have to remind you what we actually are information professionals, what we can do or we cannot do. In AI development, we are not actually in the driving seat. We're helping, we're supporting. We can provide data, but there are some others do that for us. We say we can be educators, we can help people to improve their literacy. But look, we are not information professionals, we are educators. So information professionals are increasingly marginalized with AI development. And we are actually replaced by intelligent machines and surrogates like Susie just made. They are creating human problems. And we humans solving human problems, that's not going to help him. So let's show you a fact. So our students as information professionals go to the job market. People are increasingly ask, what can you do? Can you program? Can you helping AI to get more intelligent? Or what else we can do? We say we can provide information. Excuse me, we don't need that. We have AI to do that. So to sum up, maybe I'm using my time very efficiently. We are doomed.
That is a very efficient use of time and an apt conclusion from your statement. So we go for the last part of the con statement. Ken?
Yeah,
I'm going to
thanks,
start my
Rick.
timer. By the way, I'm keeping track of everybody's time. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think there's no profession better equipped to deal with the challenges of AI than the information profession. On the technical side, I mean, iSchools and the information profession have broadened significantly. So many schools are starting programs in human-centered data science, for example, as we are at UT Austin, in ethical AI, preparing future professionals to be at the human-AI intersection. And I think that's really a key, that computer scientists understand the back-end technical components, and social scientists understand the human side of things. Information professionals understand both and how they intersect, and how that intersection is far more complex than either of those two aspects in isolation. So that's the challenging part of what we do, but we excel at it relative to other fields. In terms of data sets, Michael, you mentioned, I mean, there's no profession better equipped to manage and handle data sets. In fact, you know, one of the solutions that's been posed by, you know, in this debate about how to deal with algorithmic bias is the solution of improving metadata for data sets. And that's something that, you know, comes from our field, that we are particularly equipped to do so. So when Timnit Gebru is suggesting that we need to, you know, better annotate data sets, better provide metadata for data sets, that comes from our field. You know, we do need to work with users, and we need to work with our peers in technology and get the two to talk to each other, because a lot of the problems come from technologists not talking to users, users not understanding or being able to talk to technologists. We're bridgers. We connect across fields. We connect the UX side to the human-centered data science side to the database management side. We connect all of these different elements of AI. So we're at a nexus point in making this connection. So if anyone's going to solve the problems that AI causes, it's going to be information professionals. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you. So that's the end of our opening statements. Now I'm going to take this opportunity to start probing each side. And I'll start with a one side and give them 60 seconds, and they can decide among themselves who wants to respond to or how they want to use that 60 seconds. They could do 30, however. But I'm going to be vigilant about the time, and then give a chance to the other team to respond. So I'm going to start, and I'm also keeping an eye on the chat. So audience, feel free to post your questions and give upvotes to some questions. Maybe Abebe can filter some of that as well for me. But we'll come back to the audience things later. Right now, I want to start with something that Lynn said, and Ken, you also, which is, hey, computer scientists may know how to do program, but we know better, and we can also program. But the fact is, similarly, how you can say, well, librarians can also do coding. Well, computer scientists have also been learning about the humanistic, aspects of things. HCI is actually, I'm finding it more and more in computer science departments than information school. Certainly the strong HCI programs. So we can't say that something like HCI or human-centeredness is exclusive to iSchools or LIS, programs. So how do you, and the other side, the pro side pointed this out, that we're kind of doomed because we, the technology solution with AI would really require deep technical understanding, and we're just not very suited for that. So how do you respond to that when the companies or when the government or when places are looking for solutions that meet technical as well as the humanistic, they could either go to computer scientists who understand humanistic thing, or they can go to library programs who can also code. But then it seems like because of the emphasis on the technical side, the computer science side, wins. And so we should just get out of the equation because we're not going to be able to match that. Ken, Lynn, Sarah, 60 seconds for you.
Yeah, sure. I disagree respectfully. So, and I think it's somewhat of a false dichotomy to have iSchools versus CS anyway. There's so much intersectionality across our fields. And so I'll use my colleague Matt Leeson, the ETIAS and iSchool as an example. So he holds a PhD in computer science, but he's been in iSchool for his entire faculty career. And so when Amazon was looking for someone to help them with Mechanical Turk, they turned to Matt Lees. And so he, in terms of that question of scaling up to industry level, society level, he's been able to do that. And this is one example of many of faculty in our field who have side gigs consulting or in startups or otherwise directly influencing technology. And I think that, many of the best scholars in HCI are in iSchools. I would definitely want to debate. There are great folks in both iSchools and CS in HCI, but we bring the human-centered side of things that's hard to disagree with. Thanks.
And that's your 60 seconds. Thanks. Con, your 60 seconds to respond to that.
Do you want to go, Susie, or should I? Or Luhong?
Michael, why don't you just go? Oh,
okay.
Susie.
Well, we're wasting our time. I will go.
Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. We teach people to do programming. That's one of the things I did at my school. But that doesn't mean that we can go into these systems and make changes. It doesn't mean that we can persuade the people who are marketing these systems, and that marketing is a big problem, that they can stop using the wrong things. We can warn people, certainly. That's a good function. That's something that we do as information professionals. But actually solving the problem, and remember Susie's definition of solving it, we make it go away. We can't do that because we don't have either the tech skills, some of us do, but we mostly don't have the tech skills, and we don't have access to the systems that people are building in order to go and intervene. There are 5 seconds left. Does someone on our time want?
Or we can move on. So, all right. So now, con side, you get 30 seconds to respond to what Michael just said, because he's making case that maybe some of us have the technical skill that Ken was arguing for, but not wider scale, not enough of us, not most of us. And so 30 seconds, quick. Who wants to go?
I don't know when the last time, Michael, you worked in a library, but I have been doing a lot of work with colleagues in libraries, both public and academic, and they do have access to their systems. They have hired people who know how to code. They do have people who listen to them. And so they have, I'm done.
30 seconds. Yeah. Okay. Pro, back to you, Susie. Seems like you have
I'm the one.
Okay, 30 seconds.
Great respect for the information professions and all of us in it. Great honor to our colleagues in Con, but we are a good early warning system. We are not the architect and implementer to make that solution happen. So we really are not the ones who can solve these problems. And in fact, our esteemed colleague, Lynn, used the word that we can help solve. And I agree, we can help, but we are not the ones who can solve it.
Yeah, wonderful. That's almost 30 seconds. Thank you all for engaging in that. I'm going to move to the next point. And once again, audience, keep some questions coming. Maybe next time I'll take something from the audience. So pro side, I'm going to start with you. The con side is saying, well, we're technical skills is one thing, but maybe, we're starting to move in an era where things like programming, so Michael, you talked about COBOL programming stuff, but this day and age, programming is not as elite thing as it used to be. It's not as a special skill as it used to be. It's sort of learning how to use spreadsheets. Everybody knows or should know how to use that. And so maybe the important skills for the future going forward is not so much about being able to debug, being able to program, but being able to have a higher level understanding of technical systems. And that's where you make the impact and not so much of actually bottom up, coding. And so if that is the case, then maybe information professionals are well suited for that. They have that higher level thinking. They understand the society. They understand how these things can inform technical systems. And so being able to change things at that level. So when we think about changing systems, and Michael, you mentioned this a couple of times, we don't have the insight into that, but maybe that's not called for now, or that won't be called for as we go forward, that we could start making changes at a higher level, right? So this is the question to you, the pro side. How do you respond to that? Do you still think that we have to have deep technical skill, starting with the coding and database and so on? Or it is possible to make changes from that higher level thing, which information professions are kind of maybe more suited for. So we'll start 60 seconds for pro, and then con, you will have 60 seconds, and then 30 and 30. Pro side?
Susie, go ahead.
No, the Li Hong is taking this one.
Okay,
Go ahead, Li Hong.
We are talking about this. We are comparing different professions, the information professions and the computer science in particular. But we are trying to teach librarians to program, and we are trying to ask computer scientists to learn how to be human, which is easier. That's my point. That's
a point. You still have 40 seconds if Michael or Susie, if you want to add anything.
Let me jump in to say, you're not solving the problem by having humanists tell people what would be good. We've got to get our hands on systems to solve problems. It's fine to educate people. We do this in libraries all the time. I've worked in libraries for many years, technical things, but you've got actually to get hands on the code to fix a problem.
Yeah, fantastic. Still within 60 seconds. Con side, your time for 60 seconds.
Well, as a recent graduate of an iSchool program, I had many friends who went on to work at these large industries, and I've seen the changes that they've implemented. Now, I grant you that it's not all visible, these changes, because, of course, technological systems are like a very large ship, and it's going to take a long time to turn. That said, many of my colleagues are currently at Meta, at Google, and they were hired specifically because some of these systems need changing, and they're hired to do and implement some of those changes. So I'd say that given our strong critical flavor, even in a lot of the iSchools, we are have a strong foundation of critical scholarship, and that we are increasingly intersectional in our profile of iSchool. For example, I know that there are some folks here that worked at the iSchool Inclusion Institute, which is very much saying we need more diversity, equity, inclusion in our iSchools. And given that, we actually are getting to the giants' ears, and we are becoming the giants in those industries.
Thank you, Sarah. 30 seconds for the pro side to respond to that point.
If I might take this one.
Sure.
All excellent points, but I think it all comes down to the definition of problem. And if we're talking about it just being the system or the result of the system, you throw a rock in a lake and the problems go out. And information professions cannot take the entire ripple effect all the way out beyond. And so that's where we really can't say it belongs to just information professions and that they can solve it.
Fantastic. One last chance for the con side to respond or follow on that for 30 seconds.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Susie, I'll take your earlier point that, you know, the information professionals can be a key player in contributing to these roles. We're not arguing for our field alone to stand alone and tackle these challenges. No one field alone can tackle these challenges. It's going to take a village. It's going to take the entire community. It's going to take adjacent fields. But I think we're at the nexus point. We're the bridgers across those different areas. So in industry, increasingly, as Sarah's pointing out, we're, you know, populating industry, solving these problems. Thanks.
Wonderful. So I have actually follow on that I'm going to use as the next question for probing. Con side, one of your arguments is, look, we have examples of people who can do coding. We have example of people who can actually influence some of this tech design. But if you think about the broader kind of community, that's a very small portion. Not only that, but if you look at our educational goals and system, you don't see as much emphasis on that, right? And so one could argue that we haven't kept up our educational system in line with some of these aspirations that we have. We certainly have people who come, you know, who embrace the information science and coming from computational sciences and so on. But shouldn't we be actually bragging the other way? That, look, you know, the information scientists, we prepare them so well that they've gone out and they've contributed in this. So rather than, and I've seen this argument for many years, like, you know, I also came from computer science, and people like, hey, you know, like somebody, you know, who's done computer science have chosen to come to information science and make an impact because that's the right place or better home. Wouldn't it be great if we were preparing students in this field that other fields find desirable going into that look, you know, so how often does that happen? And at what scale? If that's not happening, then that's, you know, it's an export-import, you know, thing. We are importing, that's great, you know, that says something, but are we also exporting enough to say, yes, information professionals are really preparing for the future, for the next, you know, set of, you know, jobs and skills. So con side, I'm going to start with you, giving you 60 seconds to respond to that. What are we doing? Are we really preparing? If you're looking at the future of solving these kind of problems, are we really preparing for these students in the next generations? And then we'll go to the pro side. So con side, Lynn, seems you want to jump in?
Yes, I was just
60
reading
seconds.
the chat, and I think Nick said there are also social implications. And I think that's critical. And those social implications, as we know, AI systems pull all of the information that it can find out there. And so there's that metadata that someone had mentioned that we as librarians create We have a lot of biases in our systems that we've been using. And that's where we can come in as well to change this. And I think that's really important to look at these social aspects. Ethics comes in a lot with this. And that's another thing where we as information professionals can teach our students and really help in those areas. So I think that the whole social justice side is critical in AI.
Perfect timing. Pro side, social justice is very important. It's very central to our field. Is that really that big a deal for solving AI problems?
Well, I think it's beyond social justice. In our opening statement, we said a lot of this goes back to social problems and goes well beyond the AI itself. I think to our information professionals moving forward, if we want to get in this space, as Nick suggests, we need to be thinking about policy and how to be movers there. That is where we'll start being able to say that perhaps we can be part of what solves that real problem. And I think that we need to be thinking through the fact, if we acknowledge that we can't solve it technically, we will be on the road to saying that we are taking a larger portion in being able to solve the problem. And as we stated from the beginning, information professionals can't solve these problems as we are now. And so we do need to examine it into these other areas of things like policy.
Great. Thank you. Con, social problems are important, but social justice is part of it, maybe not all of it. You have a response to that in 30 seconds, Ken?
Yeah, so the American Library Association has always been at the forefront of policy debates in our society and continues to play an active role in the US context, but many library organizations internationally are playing critical roles in their national debates and discourses around how we can tackle issues of injustice in society, how we can promote access. And I think this is going to be key for thinking about the human side of the human AI interaction. Thanks.
Wonderful. Pro side, quick response to that.
I will just jump in and say, we're talking about something that's very hyped here. If you really understand what's going on in the AI systems, you are much more skeptical than most people. We don't have the people who really know what's going on. We don't have people who look into this code. It's a lovely thing to make virtual statements what the society should do. It's not solving the problem.
Thank you, Michael. So at this point, I'm going to open up, and remember, we're improvising. So this was a more structured part of our debate. Hopefully now, audience, you've heard enough from both sides, and some of the even repeated point that just shows how kind of sold we are, or how we're pushing these things in our agenda. So I'm going to now kind of move to a less structured side of this debate. We're still going to maintain these two sides. So the two sides are going to hold their ground, but we're not going to time them now, right? And allow them to more freely. Lynn is happy about this because I've cut her off a couple of times.
Me too.
Michael too. Yes. So, but we're still going to, hold those two sides, but without the time limit. And so I'm going to pick from something from the audience. Baby, I think, did you have any suggestion or?
Yes. So I think it is, most of, obviously, I need help from our excellent debate participants, but I think most of the arguments tend to be for the con team. But I think the key is AI so different from all the other tech developments so far. I think something that Ali made, that needs a different approach from information professions. So I think that the focus may be, is this so different that we need to change our approach or our academic programs or our research?
So Conside, you can go first, but I've seen a couple of other comments to that basically mention something along these lines that not enough LIS programs are teaching AI. And so, and just because we teach programming, or some of us can do programming, that's not enough. If we really want to do something, shouldn't we be actually, this should be a required course. This should be one of the core courses. And we're not doing that. And I think I had a question earlier too, in terms of our educational preparation. How much, are we really doing? So let's start with you. Again, no time limit at this point, but yeah, Ken?
I'm seeing a growth of AI courses in iSchools at UT Austin and beyond. So many iSchools are really embracing this. I'm also seeing where our field is starting to have outside influence beyond the boundaries of our discipline. So, for example, here at UT Austin, we're launching a new one-year master's in AI. And so we have thousands of applicants for this program. It's $10,000 tuition, so it's very reasonably priced. And there's one required course in this master's in AI. And it's ethics in AI, and I'll be teaching it from the iSchool. So this is the kind of impact that we in the iSchools can have. We founded a campus-wide research grand challenge, one of 3, Good Systems Ethical AI UT Austin. And the iSchool played a key role in founding that grand challenge, which has, affected and influenced the entire campus. And increasingly now iSchools are doing this internationally, globally, around the world, increasingly playing a leadership role. And there can't be AI without consideration of the ethical dimensions and responsible AI. So we have to be approaching this from the perspective of fairness, accountability, transparency. We have to do that from day one. And that is the way that our field has approached AI. It's not necessarily the way that computer science and some other fields have from day one approached AI, but it is how we've approached AI from day one, and it is winning. So I think that's a good proof of concept in terms of the impact our field already is having and will have in the future. Thank you.
So pro side, do you think that it's a win, this approach to AI from iSchools, which is, well, that's okay, we're not building these things, but we have a kind of a knowledge about a lot of this ethical and responsible, things. Is that enough? Is that strong enough for addressing AI problems?
We're going to split our side. I'm going to take a moment, and then Lehong will talk. Ethics doesn't solve problems. Ethics addresses problems. We've got problems here to address, but that's not solving it. We can go back to the definition that Susie gave in the beginning, but let's let Lehong talk.
I just want to share 2 points. One, when we're trying to teach AI, we try to find computer science professors to teach for us. That's for the first point. For the second point, if we are teaching ethics and everything else, we are changing the definition of information professionals. That's not our original definition of our profession. That's something new.
On-site, what do you think? Is that something new? Is that, we are evolving with this? Are we betraying our roots? What's going on? On-site?
Well, I will say that coming back to this idea that we've had a critical perspective on information systems, that is one thing that Marcia Bates says about what information science is. And I think we all know Marcia Bates, and we respect very much the idea that we are a meta discipline, right? We're like education, we're like journalism, where we have that critical distance. And in that foundation is what makes us poised to look at the field and recognize its historical arc, or look at new emerging technologies and recognize the hype for what it is. Even Michael just mentioned the hype around AI. And we, as professionals that know exactly how the systems are, this is maybe a faddish new technology, but we know that we do not break things, move fast. We're not Silicon Valley. We know that the information technologies are, in fact, a slow-moving ship, even though there might be a lot of hype around them. And so what we would respond to is that AI has other names. Critical data science, I think, is at the core of a lot of our flagship conferences, something that we focus on as well. So AI for the information professions and addressing AI critically is actually a core part of our identity as information professionals, both in history and now.
So that's a very clever thing that the con side is doing. You need to be vigilant about it. They're trying to change the definition of AI and moving the battle to other forms. What do you have to respond to that? Is the AI basically critical data science?
Susie, go ahead. You did the definition.
No, I think while individuals can choose how they want to make the definition, if you look broadly through the definition that's broadly accepted, it is something that's much more specific to creating a technology that is approximating what human capability of the mind is. And I think that we need to keep our definitions for this discussion tight and in line, because if we wander too far apart from that, we're getting into a different question, which is an interesting and important question, but not the question at hand today.
Fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to take a question from Nick Belkin. I'm going to start with the pro side. Nick says the real problems that AI raises are social, not technical, and need to be addressed not by technical means, but by social and political regulation and moderation. Do information professionals have any possibility being actors in this sphere? And I will add to that, one thing that pro side you haven't provided us is you provided us a definition of problem, but what are problems? What are specific problems? So when you argue that we can't solve those problems, what specifically are those kind of problems? And so I'll add that tag to Nick's question, but we'll start with pro side.
I'll start with that. We did bring up a couple problems, and I'll talk about them in a little greater depth. Disinformation is one that we hear a lot about, because we hear about how it can be used to make videos that are not real, to make to create an environment where information goes out and appears to be real, it is not, and that AI is mastering getting this out into a broad area. I go back to saying this is still a human started campaign. And if it's a human that's starting that campaign, solving it technologically is not the only way to do that. It is not going to actually remove the actor that formed the intent and started it. And therefore, that's a place that we need some other kind of policy or some other kind of infrastructure in place that goes beyond what we as information professions are part of. Another example, and I go on this one a lot because I'm an environmental, have heavy environmental interests, is just the fact that when we're building AI and we're training these data sets, the amount of power that takes from the power grid and where server farms are living, which is often in a socially disadvantaged area, because that's where they can build it, where people don't have an opportunity to go against it, and where power can be cheap in certain instances, like here in the Tennessee Valley. That is a policy issue that we as information scientists are not prepared to tackle as the forefront people. Now, we may be excellent at helping to build that kind of policy and providing the information to do so, but we're not the ones who are actually the actors in front, which goes back to our definition of problem solvers, being that it has to be the people who are leading and implementing the solution, not just helping with the solution. And I have one last example is we talk a lot about the AI systems, and people are talking, we have all seen opportunities where we've looked at where it puts out a lit review and we discover that half the papers don't exist because the system has been daydreaming. It takes a lot of debugging through all the different systems that are being built, because AI there's a certain component of it that's organic, of where it's being developed and how it's being developed and released into the wild for use. Information scientists may be able to detect some of that problem, but to be able to go through and say that information scientists the information professions has the ability to go through and debug all this and make it safe for human consumption, I think is overstating the situation of what we can accomplish.
Thank you, Susie. So con-side, and this is a criticism that's come up in other contexts too, which is when we say helping or solving or addressing, there's kind of a weaker tone to it, which is almost like mall cop, observe and report. can we be real cops here? Can we be actually at the front line? And this is an argument that ProSide has brought over and over again, that most times what we are doing here, or we are capable of doing, is simply addressing, helping, reporting, forming some policy or informing some policy, but not really, being at the front line, right? Is that enough? Or again, maybe, things are changing where you can say, hey, observing and reporting, that's actually more important than being out in the front, right? So your response to this, and also going back to that Nick's question, so Conside?
Yeah, so Susie just talked about debugging in the context of disinformation, in the context of hallucinations that generative AI makes. There have been cases where lawyers have gone to court with briefs they prepared using ChatGPT and didn't check, and been thrown out of court and held in contempt. And this is, I agree.
Good argument for us.
I agree with Nick's original point that these are they're socio-technical, but they're more inherently more social than technical. So with all due respect, I don't see them as bugs to be worked out in terms of the technical systems. I don't think that's where the primary solution is. I think the primary solution is how people are using and potentially abusing these technologies. So raising users' information literacy in terms of the kinds of information, the kinds of errors that generative AI can make, and how to be proactive about trying to solve that, to raise our critical media consumption literacy, so that we're not just believing everything that we see on social media, that we're trying to go to independent sources to verify. These are, important information and media literacy skills that our field has been teaching for many years, but they're even further strengthened today. And Chirag, to your point, I think we are, again, I will grant that no one profession can solve all of the problems that AI causes alone. But I think no one field is better positioned to sit at the nexus point, at the bridge, at the intersection across these issues of both the technical, the social science side, bridging toward policy. This is something that we have in our DNA, some things that our field has done for decades, leveraging technology in user-centered ways to serve users. Thanks.
Thanks, Ken. And it seems like Michael was happy because at least your first point was in support of the pro side, which is, but then you added the second point, which is if nobody is perfect here, but we are the best bet. Pro side, do you really think that we are the best bet? If a company is looking for the next whatever their generation development for AI, would they start hiring from iSchool or computer science first?
Well, let me go. I wish they would hire from our students because they learn a lot of this. And then let me go to an example that I was going to use earlier. And those are the systems like SAS and SPSS that do that do really extraordinarily good work for us, creating statistical results. They didn't work at first. Someone had to go in, recognize what they were doing wrong. They were making poor judgments about data. Someone had to go in to those systems and say, okay, we've got to flag this. We've got to have an error message. Now you can say, and I think the con side will, that, well, that's our job as information professionals. We can advise people. But when it comes to solving the problem, the definition that Susie started off with, we need someone actually to go and touch the code.
And so the argument here, Michael, is, again, we're living in a world where nobody can afford to just specialize in one thing, right? You have to know multiple things. So people who code, they still need to understand some of the human values and society, connections. So, or maybe in policy and regulation, and people who work in policy and regulation, the human side, they still also need to learn some coding and some technical sides, right? And so what we are talking about is, would you have somebody who is amazing at coding and knows just a little bit of, or about the social, humanistic thing, or vice versa, somebody who's trained in social issues, social justice and stuff, and can kind of sort of also code, right? And so that's sort of the choice we're debating.
But that's the wrong dichotomy. If you've got someone who understands the tech side, they can solve the problem. We need not just people who are ethical and virtuous. We need people who can actually go in there and make a difference to change the way the programs are working.
And the ethics and the virtue things will follow, because that also needs to be.
No, I didn't say that. The ethics and virtual things are fine, but they don't solve the problem. They don't alter the code. You've got to put out those warning messages. You've got to have someone who recognizes this data is wrong, this data is not going to do it, and go in and fix that code.
Conside, what do you think? Lynn?
I think that ethics should be integrated into every discipline. I don't care what discipline it is, and it should not be just one course. I know, and I'm very involved with COA and visiting iSchools, and I know that there are foundations courses and ethics courses, but what I look for is the integration of these and social issues into every single course. It can be from very different aspects. I think, and the whole thing about solving problems is actually building relationships, talking with people. You have to also give and take. And so it's a lot of negotiation. And I think those are also skills that are critical in any program and should be integrated throughout. So it's those communication skills, ethics, looking at social justice and what's happening within our world. And all of those things should be a part of this. AI is just the next shiny thing that we're going after. I think we mentioned some of these. You know, if you go back, there was radio, television, the internet, and electronic books, which I was very involved in. That was the end of libraries for sure. And I think it's that adapting and compromising and negotiating and pulling it all together. And I think that's why I believe that information professionals can solve some of these problems. They're not new. And we have this core ethics and core principles. And I'll stop.
Conside, thank you, Lynn. Let me probe you a little bit on this issue. And Sarah, your first argument in the opening statement were about, we're good at standing on shoulders of giants. Well, I mean, every field is, right? I mean, that's how the fields are developed. And no offense to our giants, but I'm wondering, like, how the world sees the giants. The world doesn't care about the giants come from this field or that field. They just care about giants, right? I mean, they care about who's at the upfront, who's developing this, who they should look up to. Have we prepared giants that the world say, that's that's the idea, that's the technology we're going to put at wide scale. This is what, this is the next, thing, whether it's the web, it's the large language models, it's the next, kind of communication technology or whatever it is. How well are we doing? How well are we positioned to create giants that not only we recognize in our field, but the world recognizes them, right? I mean, so we are biased because we are standing here on this ground where we name these giants and we're amazed by them and we're lucky to have them. But how much of that happens outside, right? Where it's like, oh, ASIS, I know ASIS, and I'm sorry, I'm insulting ASIS at this point, and I'll insult Elise, and I'll, by the same, I
just don't insult us.
Yes, right. Whereas, ACM, IEEE, right? I mean, some of these things, ACL, I know that, and that's what gets covered in the wide media. That's what gets discussed, and so I agree we have giants, but do our giants or any of us have really sit at the table, right? Where these policies are made. So you talk about policy changes. We teach policies and we care about policies. Great. But how many of our giants have actually contributed to the next standards and the policies being developed? So even if we for a moment forget about technical sides and we argue that social justice is a big thing, we're teaching that's good. But are we at the forefront for even those things where we can say, yes, our leaders we're developing leaders who would be at the White House talking about AI and advising them about whatever the next thing is. So Conside, I'll start with you.
Absolutely. And this is truly a concern. We won't belittle that at all, that sometimes we are not amplified in the information profession, or at least it can look like that at first. For example, Derek DeSola Price, bibliometrics sounds kind of nerdy, but now science of science is this new field, right? That's emerging from a long history of what has been called scientometrics, bibliometrics. So at times, the giants that we recognize now are sleeping beauties, if you will. And that's a term that comes from bibliometrics, right? Where you see, where, the zeitgeist doesn't recognize the value of the socio-technical perspective. I'll give a great example. So one thing that we're extremely strong at, that I think, Chirag, what you're asking right now is, there's what is it about the information professions, what we teach, what we research, our scholarship that is being taken up in a way that has teeth, right? In policy and in wider popular culture and critical literacy around these automated systems. And I would say that it is coming from the social, the technical side together. For example, viral events, right? Misinformation spreads because of viral events. What is virality? Well, you have to know the content. Oh my goodness. One of our president was born in another country, patently false. But it's not only that, it's also, how does virality work? We, in our information profession, nominated as one of our best books at ASIST, Going Viral. We know that virality has a signature and we can predict when virality happens. We know the kinds of ways that misinformation can be sticky and how it accelerates through systems because of the affordances of technology. So I would say that not a lot of the giants in our field are known beyond our sphere right now. But did you notice when misinformation was a problem? Everyone looked to librarians' digital literacy papers. We were amplified in that moment. And so I think that, we are sleeping beauties that are going to be recognized, but we do need to have representation at the popular culture level, at the journalistic level, at the policy level as well.
So pro side, a good argument. Sarah, Michael, you're shaking your head.
Well,
Sarah's saying, well, we got stuff. It's a matter of time we get the recognition, and maybe some of that has happened, and a lot more will happen going forward. What do you have to say to that?
Fantasy is a wonderful thing. I would be happy if we had people talking at Bellevue Palace here in Berlin or in Beijing about these issues, but we don't actually have that much influence there. What we need is to get a grip on reality. Lynn mentioned ebooks. We've been in favor. People were afraid of ebooks. We've realized ebooks have a lot of technical problems. They could be much, much better if someone went in. We know how to do this, to fix some of the coding way that they're displayed so that people could use them more easily. That hasn't happened. We may want this sort of thing. We may want to encourage people to be able to get better access. We don't go in and do it. We don't have the connections. One of your points here, Chirag, we don't have the tech skills to go in and do that. A few of us do. I think Ken could do it. I can do it. But mostly, we don't have those skills. When we talk about actually solving problems, what Susie started off with our definition, we aren't dealing with that. We are dealing with hype.
I'd like to
Susie.
add one piece to that. We haven't talked at all, and we have only a couple moments left, but we haven't talked at all about the fact that data is the ground truth of AI. We've talked a lot about the algorithms that you build to deal with the data, but ultimately the data comes from somewhere and somebody owns the data, and the data is being grabbed in different places. And on this question of are our giants at the table when we're talking about policy, that is a place that right now we have some information professionals, some people from the information professions, information science, but there's a lot of other groups there as well. And I'm not sure our giants are there around the world. As Michael pointed, he named a bunch of cities around the world. And I'm not sure that that's the case everywhere. So that kind of goes on to our point that I'm not sure that our giants are at the policy seat where a lot of these changes can be made. And when I'm thinking about a very specific area, data, AI is nothing without data, because there is nothing there if there's nothing to be working on and creating knowledge out of.
Thank you, Susie. So at this point, since we're coming toward the end, I'm going to give each side to provide their closing statement. And I'm not waiting to the last minute to do that, because after that, I want everybody to kind of just like free from their spell and just have a few moments of just free thoughts, because they've been acting and maybe they've been holding back, or they've been, like, oh, wish I could be actually on that side because I agree with that. But because they've done a very good job of holding their ground. So I also want to give our debaters a chance to be themselves for last few moments. But we'll start with still being in the debate mode and giving our closing statement, taking no more than 2 minutes at this point. So we'll start with the pro side. And you can have one person, or you can divide the time, but you have 2 minutes.
Well, let's divide the time, but I'll start off here. And we've got to agree on what solving a problem means. Solving a problem is not just talking about it. It's not just making nice statements to our students. It's not introducing ethics. It is actually making that problem do something that goes away. This is what Susie put in the initial piece. And if we don't do that, if we aren't actually active in dealing with the problem, dealing with the data, dealing with the lack of error messages, then we're not fixing the problem. I'll let my colleagues go here. Hong, Susie.
Okay, Susie, can I just go very quickly? So when we talk about a problem and we are trying to solve the problem, I think there are other people who can do better jobs. There are other people who can really solve the problem. For example, there are policymakers. We cannot make policies. We can make suggestions, which may or may not taken seriously. We can have management people who can put the team together. We can find some other to do this thing. So information professionals need to find its place. Susie, sorry.
I'll just say AI is a very powerful, disruptive technology. It's making lots of problems, and it's more problems than the information professions or information sciences can solve by itself. So no, it cannot solve the problems that AI creates.
Fantastic. Conside, your closing statement, 2 minutes.
Yeah, so as we talked about here and in the chat, we need to connect all of Dania Bilal made this point that we need to connect the technical, the social, the ethical, the conceptual aspects of AI all together. So computer scientists understand AI, social scientists understand people. We're in the information professions, the fairly unique position of really understanding both in a deep, meaningful way. So if we're going to build effective human AI partnerships, we need to have that hybrid expertise across those domains, not be siloed into one or the other. And in fact, we need computer scientists talking to social scientists, and having that happen without the information profession to mediate the conversation is usually pretty messy. So we play a really critical role in getting everyone to the table and assisting that communication. There have been numerous AI hype cycles in the past and numerous AI winners. We're in for more. So this is not necessarily a perpetual AI hype cycle, just to be prepared. And how we define AI is going to change. It's always at the forefront of what, things that we can't currently do with computing is what AI will be, the AI of the future will do. the question shouldn't be whether or not to use AI. The question should be how to use it. So humans plus AI are going to beat a human without AI or an AI without humans just about every day. So we need that human AI partnership. So we've talked about a number of issues in here. Algorithmic bias. There's iSchool research on that. Societal implications of disinformation, including deepfakes. There's iSchool research on that. Human-robot interaction. There's iSchool research on that. Using AI to protect and empower workers. There's AI research on that. Leveraging AI for social good. There's AI research on that. And that's just the UT Austin iSchool alone. Of course, across our iSchools internationally, globally, there's a huge range and breadth of research going on. So AI is poised to create many challenges for society and humanity. But if there's any one profession that's equipped to deal with these challenges, it is ours, a profession that upholds the core values of literacy, freedom of information, transparency, explainability, and accessibility. It's the information profession. Thanks.
Thank you, Ken. And so that wraps up our structured part of this debate. And I first just really want to thank the debaters for doing excellent job. And I don't know if you can tell, but they really, the good acting is the one where you don't realize that they're acting, right? So it seems like they're really, arguing for some side. They're running a campaign. So thank you so much for playing this part. And now I want to free you from that obligation and just give you a chance to be yourself, to have some reflection, maybe based on this debate or based on just what you want to see. A lot of things flying in the chat. But at this point, we're losing the pro and con side, and just 6 people here sitting on the stage, virtual stage, and you can raise your hand or you can just, speak up. Michael?
Well, since we're not representing our sides, I could perfectly well be on the other side too. I think that one of the things I would have argued on the other side was that we recognize these problems and we need to work with the people who have the tech skills to do it. But we can't deny the fact that there really are problems there. I work almost, every week I deal with AI issues, especially in the news features, those of you who get them. And there's a new one coming out where a person, perfectly nice person, not an academic really, created a paper. It was an AI-based lie. And that is something that we ought to be stopping as information professionals, warning people. There are journals that are not doing serious peer review. We need to warn them. But that doesn't actually solve the AI problem. It solves part of that penumbra of what people are mistaking. The hype is there. We can't get rid of the hype, but I would work on it. So I like the con side too.
Others who want to, break away from whatever side they were holding before, and just any thoughts? Yeah, Lihan.
Okay, I think we all did an excellent job. I actually think there are 2 sides of things. There is no one side really stands. We need to understand our position, as well as we need to understand our threats as well. Well, AI provides both opportunities and challenges. If we as information professionals, we definitely should adapt and evolve and then learn from the new things. We have been evolving through times. We have been evolving through databases, the internet, and now we have this AI thingy, and we have to adapt to. And maybe sometimes we need to pivot. Sometimes we need to find new topics, but we need to really think about our identities. But there are certain problems we are having, for example, how we approach AI, how we use AI, even how we teach AI, something we should really think about that.
Yeah, great. Other final thoughts? I just responded to Nick's question about a formal debate ends with a vote from the audience who won. And I said, well, that's where we're going to go informal here. So,
Or you could ask, is there the raise the hand function in Zoom? You could ask
Yes.
people to raise their hands for the pro or the con. But I wanted to say something. I
yeah.
don't want to change my side. I want to stay on the
You're going to go down swinging, aren't you, Leland?
No, but I really do believe that it is all but it's very integrated and we can't do it on our own. And I also agree that we definitely need to become more involved in policy making and at the international level, which IFLA has been trying to make some inroads there. But anyway, thank you all. And if, Chirag, maybe we can take the vote with the show of hands, raising the hands. I don't know.
We didn't talk about that, so we can do that. Are you guys okay running this? To see if our audience is even paying attention at this point. But we can do this quick thing. So let's do show of hands. I want everybody to first find where that hand is. I think if you go down in reaction.
Chirag, I could do a poll if you'd like.
Oh, sure. Let's do that. So while you're setting that up, I'm going to start wrapping this up. Just a few words. So one of the things I should mention is, and I think everybody agreed that we're going to continue using AI. AI is here to stay. In fact, even setting this debate up, we had 6 people, but we were trying to figure out who goes on which side, and we used ChatGPT for that. Thanks to her. And you can see that it's a well-balanced team, like both, right? I mean, it's amazing how this can happen. Whereas, like, how would I be doing this assignment? Who goes on pro side and who goes on con side? I use this app for tossing a coin, right? And so there are a lot of problems that are beyond just some gathering information or finding information, but decision making. And we're starting to find more and more ways to do this, and more people are starting to find that. So I think this is definitely here to stay in one way, shape, or form. AI has always had this history of what falls under AI and what goes out of AI. There was a time when people criticized that anything that gets solved under AI moves to a different field. So it's no longer AI, right? So AI often has suffered from, and now it's the opposite. Anything that was never in AI is like all being parked under AI. But this is where we are. So whether you buy in one side or the other, I do hope that everybody recognizes the importance of it, and more importantly, the role that we all can play, right? So I hope that nobody sits on the sideline for this. Okay, so Lydia, do we have the poll? We can launch.
Yes.
Okay, there you go. I'm not going to vote because that would be unethical.
Can we vote?
Are we allowed to vote?
You
Well,
can
I just
vote.
voted, so it popped up and I voted.
Yes, the debaters can vote, but I hope everybody else does too. So audience, if you're on Zoom, please, if you have screen, there should be a pop-up in front of you.
Chirag,
Yes, Dania.
we need a third option.
Third option.
Both lose.
Good idea. Yeah.
Yeah,
I guess Lydia is too late at this point, right?
It is too late to change the poll, so you'd have to
Let's just
enter
go
your
with this.
feeling
Pick a
in
side.
the-
You got to pick a side. This is like voting in an election.
Yeah.
You can't,
I
there's
like-
no third party candidate. And only got 2
I
parties.
don't vote in elections.
So maybe that's
I like
what
to
you
vote.
do.
No more voting after this year.
Chirag, someone asked if you could repeat, could you restate the pro and con side?
Yes, so information professions cannot solve the AI problem. So the pro side agrees with that. So if you voting for pro means you agree that information profession is not well suited for solving AI problems, and con side says yes, we can. Right. So I know there's a double negative there, but con
Bebe
side
had
said
just put it
information
into the
profession
chat,
can
too.
solve. I'm sorry, Michael.
Bebe put it in the chat.
Yeah. Okay.
30
thank you,
more
Bebe.
seconds to vote.
So that's a statement that Abebe just put. So pro side agrees with that statement, con side disagrees with that statement.
Very close.
Is anyone nervous? I'm nervous.
I
In the
didn't want to do
meantime,
this. You guys agreed
Yeah.
to it, so.
Okay,
I
ready?
know,
Shall I
in the
close it down?
meantime.
Shall we
Yes.
say we both win?
Oh,
you
it's
go.
so
Very close.
Very close.
Great.
Oh, great.
All right. Well, again, we're at time. So thank you everybody so much for participating, especially our debaters. This was not easy. In case the audience, if you don't realize, but I hope that everybody enjoyed this format and we learned something from it. Maybe we'll try again, or maybe we'll never do this again. But if you have any feedback, definitely reach out to Lydia. Maybe we'll have some, survey afterwards. But thank you all for participating. I'm going to hand it back to Abebe to close.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chirag. Thank you, everyone. I don't know about you. I really enjoyed. I wish this could go on. The question that really June asked was, what is next? I think that's a great question. So next is, please stay engaged because we're going to continue this conversation. First, at next week's ASIS annual meeting in London. We hope to see most of you or all of you there. And we're going to reach out again for either a different topic or continuation of this. So we will let the iFederation decide the next set of topics for discussion. As Chirag said, I hope you liked it. We'll continue. For me, it was very, very interesting. So Lydia, any last minute housekeeping?
I don't think so. This has been recorded. I will post the recording and the chat online by the end of the day. So feel free to share this with your friends and colleagues. We had 102 people on at the most today, which was pretty huge for us. So that's very exciting.
Excellent.
So thank you all for attending.
Thank you. This is the audience. Most importantly, really, you made this a success. Thank you all. And we hope to see you soon. Yep. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Charles,
Bye.
See you in London, I hope.
Hey.
See you in London.
See you in London.
See you. Bye.